Right, this video is about suicide thoughts. Something that I've been kind of traumatized with my whole life. It goes like hand in hand with kind of OCD, anxiety, depression. When I kind of moved out of my home and kind of lived on my own, I had a flatmate, like a friend I lived with, but didn't see him very often. So when I lived on my own, there was ample opportunity for like the thoughts to run free, to run, imagination to kind of run wild. And there was quite a lot of times where I come very close to committing suicide. The thoughts were there. I remember two occasions, standing in front of a mirror, kind of one was with a knife, one was a pair of scissors, I think, and looking at my own reflection, pressing it against the skin. But as you can see, I never actually went through with it. And I don't know if it was like a coward thing. I don't know if you're more of a coward to do it or to not do it, to choose to live. I don't really know. It's like a dilemma or a paradox, if you like. Are you brave enough to take your own life? Are you brave enough to carry on living? That's kind of the dilemma that you kind of live with. Even though I didn't go through with it, you still have the guilt, you still have the shame, you still have the embarrassment of kind of facing people, even though they don't know, because you don't tell anyone. And and obviously you go to work and you see your family, and no one knows what you did because you're not going to say anything, and you got to face yourself the next day. You got to look in the mirror the next day at yourself, and it takes a lot of doing sometimes, and it's hard sometimes to come back from that. It's kind of, for that week it sets you off. It's a really hard place to be. I mean, that's a total understatement. But yeah, come very close. I mean, living on my own, I didn't think anyone would kind of miss me. I don't think, I had thoughts of that my body wouldn't be found for a couple of days, so it didn't really matter. And and the only thing I can think of that kind of stopped me is kind of that living up to that point. I haven't lived any potential. I haven't fulfilled any potential. I haven't really did anything with my life. Didn't have any family. I wasn't in a relationship really. Well, I had family, but not as in children or wife and that. And maybe part of me was thinking that because I haven't got that at the moment, that maybe I should try carrying on living to succeed in that, maybe. And maybe that pulled me out a bit, or maybe it was just not having the nerve, not having the pain barrier to do it, maybe. But the intrusive thoughts, what it was, like, you get the intrusive thoughts of suicide thoughts, and you try and kind of ban those thoughts, but it got to the stage where those thoughts were becoming real, and I was taking it seriously. And when your imagination is running wild, that's in a way that's quite a good time, because it's still active and it can still change in a way. But it's when your mind goes quiet and you kind of like kind of come to terms with that, actually, yeah, that could be a bit of a plan to do that, to take my own life, maybe. And it was impulsive then. It wasn't premeditated then. Like when I lived on my own, it was like, right, I'm gonna do it tonight. I'm gonna do it. It wasn't like planning so much. And later on in life, up to like 3 years ago, I was in a really bad, pit of despair. I mean, for me, the trigger was chicken pox. And it just sent me spiraling. It was alcohol as well. Sent me spiraling, and I thought I had nothing to live for. My counselling courses had finished after 5 years, so that was like an empty space as well. And I was in a really bad place. I was imagining, I planned it. I picked the wall out to drive into on the way back from work, and this is with a family, and that was my worst time, I think, that I had it. And that was, like I said, that was with a family. On my own, I kind of talked myself out of it. With a family, it was almost like a really serious intent. And but then on the flip side, I think it was kind of the family kind of environment, if you like, that kind of got me out of it a bit. And it's hard to keep putting up that mask and functioning, thinking suicide thoughts and kind of trying to interact with your children and that. And so I think that's what snapped me out of it in a way. And so which luckily for me, it's something I can talk about now, and being in that despair where nothing else really matters. But then the people around you can't ignore. It comes to that point. And I'm glad I found the kind of will to kind of snap out of it. And snap out of it's kind of making it sound like it was easy, but it wasn't easy, not at all. And you think about the pain that you was in, and you think about the pain that you pass on. I mean, I can look at it now, and think that I would have just been passing the pain on, and what would I have left behind? And those feelings there, you still feel good about that now. You do feel selfish. You hear that people say, or you have heard on the TV, and that people say that suicide is like a selfish act. But my personal opinion, I don't think that, this is all my personal opinions and experiences. I don't think it is. I think it takes a hell of a lot of courage to do and to go through with it. And it just, for me, it shows what kind of state of mind that person must really be in to go through with it. And yeah, I mean, I've witnessed suicide myself. I've found some that committed suicide. And for me, the thoughts were kind of like with his family, obviously, but for me, it was also kind of like a guilt of like, should I have read some signs because I lived with the person? Should I have seen some signs? Should I have spoke to him a bit more? It's you do, and you count back the days from when it happened, and you try and work out, is there a point where you could have stopped it? Could you have locked a certain door? Could you have hid something? And it does. It's an unanswerable question, really. But seeing that, you see the aftermath. You see the shock in people, including myself, but the shock of the town you live in, the upset in the family. And you see the aftermath of that, and that sticks with you as well. That sticks with me. Kind of, that's what I would be leaving behind. All those thoughts and feelings, and all that with the family that I leave behind, and the people that I leave behind as well. There was also something that sticks with you, like you see when you see it real. You see it as a way out. For me, I'm just talking to me personally, that you see it stays in my mind as a way out, when it's made real like that, because it is real. The thoughts are real, the acts are real, but it triggers my mind as a way out. But maybe if I do get that bad, that is a way out. Maybe I don't have to ask for help. I could just take it in my own hands. Like a lot of men do. They don't want to ask for help. They rather take care of it themselves. And and that, like I say, after witnessing the suicide, it kind of stuck in my head, because I've got a sticky mind, because I've got intrusive thoughts, because I've got anxiety. That kind of thing sticks in my mind, and I did see it as a way out. If you want in the future, it's there just in case, as a way to go, and so yeah, and like I keep saying, it is real. It's real. The thoughts at the time, they are just thoughts, but people go through with it all the time, and it's really hard to imagine. I couldn't bear to imagine. I couldn't even like say that I could imagine the thoughts and the feelings of the families left behind. I've never been in that experience, but you can't. It must be just an empty void. It must be so bad, and so I mean, the point of this video is to kind of trying to kind of speak about it, is to create awareness. What I'm trying to say is, the person that you go to work with, the person that you're friends with, the person you play football with, the person that you haven't seen for years, people that you're in contact with on Facebook, you don't know what they've gone through, you don't know what depths they've gone to, and you honestly don't, you don't know if they've come close to committing suicide, or they know people that commit suicide, or so talk to people, like communicate with people, text someone you haven't heard from last time for a long time, because like I said about when my mind went quiet, that's when I started to worry. And sometimes that's the thing with people, when they go quiet, that's the time to worry. If and me as well, like when I got into that state, when I lived on my own, I did kind of, I wrote down how I felt. I felt that was the only outlet. I mean, when you're in that kind of state, for me, I was just bored out of my mind, restless, and that was a lot of it. You just didn't have nothing to do, and I did just kind of write a bit of poetry that I'm going to read later, or in a minute, and just to create something. And I keep saying it, like making it real, make that real then, because when it's in your imagination, you know, it can twist and turn, and you can't get away from it. It's an unanswerable question. You know, you can't solve the answer. But when you write it down, when you make it real, and that's how you actually, you know, you understand yourself a bit better. Because there is a loneliness, you know, when you're in those, you know, when you're holding that knife and you're looking at yourself in the mirror, there is a loneliness, and there's a thought there that no one understands you. You know, no one could possibly understand how you feel. You know, so you're not going to even bother talking. You know, because no one will understand. But there's also that thought and feelings of a rejection. You know, I mean, in life in general, if you're trying to talk to someone about something and they just say, "Oh, don't worry about that," or "Put your socks up," or "that happened to me," "Oh, I know someone that happened to." Oh, right, those kind of thoughts. Yeah, I've had that before. You know, that is a kind of rejection. You know, people are not really listening. You know, but and that's why sometimes, for me anyway, when I was in that depths, I didn't want to speak to anyone because I was fear that they would reject what I'm saying, or didn't really care, which has happened loads of me to the past. Maybe it hasn't, but that's how it seemed, you know, because your mind does get polluted sometimes. So there's that fear of rejection. So you don't want to talk about it. You know, that's why you keep quiet, because if you talk about it and then someone just throws, you know, and that just sends you deep further. Because for me anyway, you know, it doesn't matter, like, whatever status you're in, how much money you earn, what business you're in, if you got a family or haven't got a family, you're an only child or you got 5 brothers and sisters, you know, it can affect anyone. It really can, you know, because things can just build up. The life we live today, you know, it's a stressful life. There's a lot of weight on people's heads for the lives that we live today. And, you know, it can get to that point where, you know, if you don't release it somewhere, if you don't speak to someone, get some kind of outlet, it builds up and it's got to come out somewhere. And sometimes it can just kind of weigh you down, weigh you right down to those thoughts. To play some play people who's never been before, and I don't know how to react. And then little things like, you know, you get trigger. For me, it was chicken pox. It was the trigger, you know. But you get little things. Someone pulls out in front of you in a car. Someone doesn't say thank you when you open the door to them. Something like that. Someone said something as a joke, and you didn't think it was very funny. That can be a trigger to send you over the edge, you know. So it's good for people to just to talk about things, you know. Like I say, it can affect anyone. It's real. It's real life. It can affect man or woman, whatever status you're in, you know, like say financially rich or unemployed, or, you know, working with a family, whatever status, it can still affect you. And, you know, and also with if you got depression and anxiety as well, you know, which is kind of biological as well, if you got that already, you know, you're kind of halfway there. And I'm just being honest, though, you are kind of halfway there. You know, you're kind of on the dark side, if you like, you know, and you need a lot of light to keep you going. So if you're on the dark side that way, and then you're put in a dark environment, you know, the suicide thoughts and intrusive thoughts, they can just thrive. They really can. So that's kind of like the point of this video I'm trying to say, you know, is to kind of get people to talk about it. You know, like, you know, people can share their experiences if they've been really low. You know, every kind of opinion, experience matters. You know, make it like a topic of conversation. You know, it is interesting to talk about, but it's good to get out. You know, it's good to have some outlet to talk about it and really kind of expose the truth. You know, like men in particular, because I'm talking about myself. Don't be afraid to kind of talk to your friend, talk to someone that you trust. You know, and if you do get rejected, then, you know, that's not, you know, that's on them. But, you know, but if you are the person that someone's talking to, you know, don't offer advice, don't give opinions, don't tell them to pull their socks up. Just listen and be there, you know, because that can really help. And it's all about creating awareness and people being honest with themselves. And if it feels like me doing this video, you know, I feel there's certain things that I shouldn't say, you know, but I'm saying them, you know, like I've tried to commit suicide, you know, I had the thoughts to try and do it. I pictured it in my head. I never went through that. I never broke skin, you know. So in a way, you know, I didn't, you know, I got there, but, you know, at the actual physical point, you know, I kind of chickened out, or whatever you want to call it. But the thoughts were there, and the thoughts were always there for a very long time. It doesn't matter though, you know. It's not a competition. It's just getting it out there, and everyone's got different experiences. Like I say, I wouldn't be able to, you know, say how like a family, you know, how they've reacted to suicide, because I've never been through that. But, you know, I've witnessed the suicide. I've had suicide thoughts. It really is, you know, it's just a not a very nice place to be on your own. So that's what I'm trying to say. Trying to get people to express how you feel, in some way or another. Even just write it down or write it in a letter. Do it yourself. You get a better understanding of yourself, and it's just maybe small steps to getting back to that kind of reality where when you can like move forward, or you can receive help or seek help. So yeah, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to read a poem that I've written about suicide. Talk a little bit about that at the end. Okay, the poem's called Storm Never Came. And here we go. Balance is one of life's skills, steering a ship for a perfect storm. The ideal happening is to be still. In today's world, that's not the norm. To find the perfect place in life, peace, warmth and tranquility. Opposite feels like a sharp knife, or out of breath, bottom of the sea. Weighing up the moments of our time, moon dependent on rain or shine. Mind topples with the weight of it all, playful imaginings turning suicidal. Would it hurt to give nature a nudge, hoping survival wouldn't bear a grudge? If fate steps in and break my fall, I could land on middle ground I wasn't looking for. Feeling drunk but not drinking, on solid ground but inside thinking. Point of no return is not forgiving, decisions near death as hard as near living. I knew someone who acted on doubt, so I've always seen it as a way out. I started to worry when my mind went quiet, so this is my idea of a spoken riot. Putting it all down for all to see, how this was an option taken seriously. Looking at it now, it feels of nonsense. In death, I never wanted life on my conscience. I talked, I listened, I called my own bluff. Luckily for me, in the end, enough was never enough. I just want to touch on a bit about that. I could land on middle ground I wasn't looking for. Like when you're in that kind of thought process, though, you don't think about it. But what if, like, you try to commit suicide and you're unsuccessful, and you end up still alive, but you're in a wheelchair or in a coma, and like your family's got to look after you for the rest of your life. It's things you don't kind of think about, but I've kind of learned about later, and it's all part of it. And also the bit about kind of decisions near death as hard as near living. At that point you got a decision there whether choose to die or choose to live, and which one's the hardest. And I'm just my experience. I'm just talking about here, but in my opinion, that it's at that balance, and it's at that point where the decision to choose to die is easier than to choose to live. You rather die than to keep on living. And I think for me, at that point, I chose to live. I choose to live because maybe I felt that there was more, and I was still reasonably young. But for my opinion, that's what that line of the poem, "Decisions near death, hard as to live," is that kind of balance there, where it's easier to choose the death over the living. And that's where that's people commit suicide. So like I say, this is my kind of thoughts and experiences that I've had, and that I've seen and that I've been through. And they say this video is not like a cry for help. It's not like kind of just to make a good video. It's to just to keep it real, just to keep talking about it. If nothing else, ring a friend or something like that. I'm not trying to preach or anything like that, but just if you think of someone I haven't heard from them in a while, or someone that sometimes they're not in a very good place, give them a ring, give them a text. How you doing? I haven't seen you for a long. I heard from you for a long time. It's just to keep those connections, and listen. Listening is always a good thing. Not, like I say, not so much advice or opinions. Listening is always a good thing. So this is kind of my kind of suicide kind of video, just to kind of give you a bit of my story and my thoughts and that, and just like you say, to keep it real and keep talking about it and get it out there. So I hope that people, if you watch this to the end, that you got something out of it. If you subscribe to my channel, I'm going to do some other videos about other things, mostly do mental health, and share a bit of poetry as well. So thank you for listening, and goodbye.